Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Into the Outer Realms, where the paranormal and the supernatural are just the normal and the natural. And someone who taught me that, lots of people contributed to teach me that, but this person so near and dear to my heart, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. You're going to see plenty of pictures of her tonight. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of breath for some reason. Allergy season is really getting to me. But anyway, as you see, I'll have a slideshow here, so you're not just looking at me the whole time here. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, a tribute to a mentor and a friend. It was a process. An interested investigator, how you're going to learn tonight, who believed in an experience that Tanya and I had and introduced us to other people and then mentored us, and then over time became a friend. And I have a series of slides to share that, and then became our publisher towards the end of her life. So here we are, and here we go. Let's roll the opening, and then we will get started. I'm going to put this picture of Rosemary aside and come back to it later in the proper place in the story. So we're going to go with the opening tonight. The music, as you listen to it, keep in mind, composed by our son Jeremy, who is starting at the prestigious Berklee College of Music this coming Monday. So how fitting. So welcome to the show.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
Hi, and welcome back. Just letting someone know, remember, if you're watching the show on YouTube, you are not going to have access to the comments from Facebook, but you could always go to the Into the Outer Realms Facebook page or my Joey Medea Facebook page after the show and see those comments. It's just the way that it is set up. No, you certainly didn't pick the wrong one. It's just there are benefits to both. It actually helps the show out if you watch through YouTube, but I'm thrilled, whatever medium you're watching through, I'm thrilled to have you with me, especially tonight. Those of you who knew Rosemary know that she was born and she died in July, but my schedule being what it is, I wasn't able to schedule this tribute show. So that's why I'm doing it a couple weeks early. So this is going to be a combination of letting you know, I say my favorite 14 books of the 65. I would say I probably have read about 30 of the books, and I would say that I reviewed 12 to 15 of them. What I really selected were books that will give you a really good introduction into just how vast Rosemary's knowledge was, how impressive. I'm going to start with her encyclopedias. But before I go into the encyclopedias, I'm going to pull this up again here. This is Tanya and I in the cornfield that has sort of become part of the lore and legend of our experience in 2009, which we've talked about abundantly. And I don't want to go too far sideways. The reason I'm including it is this picture was either taken by Rosemary or our friends John and Tim Frick. And that's when we first met Rosemary in November of 2009, where she graciously traveled from the East Coast to the West Virginia, Ohio border to meet Tanya and I and hear our story of lost time and space-time distortion and other weird oddities. This is the cornfield that the interdimensional being blinked out of existence on the edge of. So that's why I have that there. And that really touched off a friendship of and started as mentorship and developed into friendship and so much more over the course of the next decade, where we trained under her. This is Tim Frick, and here we are with Rosemary. November was a favorite time for us to go. September was wonderful, the festival, and I have pictures of the festival to share with you. But November, of course, is the anniversary of the sightings, the Scarberries and the Mallets, so on and so forth, Marcella Bennett, and on. And we would go down. One very memorable night Tanya will remember was 11/11/11. So November 11th, 2011, we went down. We went to the igloos. I'll show you a picture of Rosemary with the Frank's box, with the spirit box. We got some interesting messages, kind of went on a wild goose chase, always had an adventure. But there was a group of us. It was really, the core group was about 6 of us. But it grew over time to 12 or 15 people who were sort of affiliate or came in and out of it. And yes, 11/11 at 11 o'clock to be in the igloos at 11/11, I believe, down at the TNT area. Tanya is reminding me, but she called us the Mothman Irregulars, sort of an ad hoc group, again, with the core, with the Frick brothers and ourselves and Rosemary. And then it became training, and training was really in 3 parts. One was reading as many of her books as you could, and then being able to listen to her lecture and share experiences anecdotally. Towards the end of her life, Rosemary had really put together sort of a theory of everything for the paranormal, which I will discuss later tonight. When you sort of, and as you watch her books unfold through the decades, it's slowly building to this. It was an impressive amount of scholarship. So sitting in the lobby of the Lowe Hotel just for hours and hours and hours, listening to her talk. And I have other photos of being on the streets in Point Pleasant or in the TNT or other places, some of which I'll share to you. Yes, the Mothman statue right in the background there. That's the Mothman Museum right behind, and then Mothman in the town square there. Thank you, Lori, for pointing that out. It was a wonderful view, and listening to Rosemary. The other part was actual field training, which went on really for a very long time before we first did our thing. And here she and I, and that's why I chose to wear this t-shirt tonight, a little underdressed for something like this on one hand, but I want to wear this t-shirt from the 2010 Mothman Festival. So this was probably our big 11/11 weekend when we were down there. Let's see here. What do I have next? And here is Rosemary. This is the monument to the Silver Bridge, which collapsed December 15th, 1967, bringing really to an end 13 months of the Mothman UFO MIB high strangeness flap to the day, from the day that the Mallets and Scarberries saw the Mothman. Now, there had been sightings prior in early November, but the Mallet sighting seems to be the one that touches it off. So it's this 13 months, which is very odd. We excuse me, always got very interesting communications down by the river, through the spirit boxes, through intuitives like Rosemary and Tanya. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to enlighten you a little tonight on the fact that Rosemary was very gifted, intuitive, psychic medium herself in many ways, and sometimes kept that more to herself. It was 3 years after we had met her that I first really kind of knew that she had these talents. And here she is, getting right down into it, under this rock, suspended by these other rocks, propped on with her trusty camera, and was just amazing to watch her commitment to the work which she took seriously. She did not suffer fools. She did not suffer fooling around, especially when the Frank's box was on and we were communicating. She didn't like, class clown kind of behavior. She always walked the line between responsibility and danger. So there were adventures sometimes we had where we wound up places that weren't totally safe. And she was always the first one who said, okay, is enough, turn the van around because we're leaving immediately. And we had a couple of those experiences with the Mothman regulars over the years. Okay, so I'm going to take this down for now. Hopefully it'll remember its place. And let's start getting into the books. We're going to start with 3 encyclopedias. This was my introduction to Rosemary. The very first book that I ever read of hers, which I bought at the Mothman Festival, was Vampires, Werewolves, and Other Monsters. Her encyclopedias have wonderful photos in them. They're big, they're robust. The print is kind of small. And as you know from my friend Constance Victoria Briggs, who did the Encyclopedia of the Moon, this is tremendous amounts of work. You have to basically almost be exhaustive. And look, just these beautiful pictures. Bela Lugosi on set with some of the equipment, and just a wonderful Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr. So if you're interested in vampires, werewolves, and other monsters, these encyclopedias are now exceedingly hard to get. I want to see. Yeah, this is probably one of the first autographs that I ever got from Rosemary. This would be in 2010 at the Mothman Festival. To Joey, fantastically yours, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Terrific book. This next one, we have the Guiley prints for this, also signed by Rosemary with the star in the circle that she would always put in the pentagram. The Encyclopedia of Witches and Witchcraft. I pulled just a little bit. We have the entire set of Guiley proofs. Every 30 or so pages, they're sort of bound together. This was a gift to Tanya from the Frick brothers right after Rosemary passed. So it's wonderful to have this. Another just absolutely amazing book. The major people in witchcraft. Just other great illustrations. There, let me hear the Baphomet by Levi there. So there it is. So, and then this is one that I go to all the time in my research and for my fiction books and to ward our home when there's been intrusions and things like this. Typically, when I'm picking up this book, is when I'm really missing her, because if I'm going to the angel lore and warding the house or trying to protect someone that we know who's had a bad experience, I will pick up this book. And it's just everything from angelic script to all the major angels to the hierarchies, just full of beautiful illustrations. And again, absolutely exhausting. And then here in the beginning, notes that I have, shows that I've done with Craig Ansell and other people. Anytime angels, demons, all of that kind of thing goes up, you know that this is one of the books that I read. I first read this in October of 2012, absolutely cover to cover. Fascinating readings, as I did with the Vampire and Werewolves book. Lori found the Encyclopedia of Vampires and Werewolves. It still is available there. While I'm posting a URL, I should also let you know I posted a couple of other URLs. I'll just put them up here. One is visionaryliving.com. This is the publishing company and so much more that Rosemary founded. Published Tanya's first book, Living the Intuitive Life, published our book, Watch Out for the Hallway, which she, asked in both cases, came to us and said, would you write these books? I think they would be great. So that was wonderful. And the other thing, up in the beginning of the comments on both YouTube and on Facebook, my tribute that I wrote to Rosemary on my New Mystics website after she passed. So there you go. So I'm going to try to stay up with everything. The Encyclopedia Angels is also available. This is highly recommended. Rosemary was known for ghosts and spirits, and she was known for ufology. a voice of reason. I have to believe that she would find this a very fascinating time and would be tapped into some very high level people who would be giving her an understanding of exactly what's going on with this weird tug of war. I'll talk about at the end of the show our plans for that, because they're kind of big here on the show for disclosure. Her Soul Journeys, Past Lives and Reincarnation book. This is to Tanya, Happy Journeys, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. This is a wonderful book for connecting with your past lives. As you probably know, Tanya is certified in past life soul contact through the Edgar Cayce Institute with her hypnosis degree from another organization or certification. And this is a wonderful book, Soul Journeys, Past Lives and Reincarnation. I'll give you just a little bit from the table of contents. So reincarnation in the age of new consciousness. Rosemary was very tapped into new studies, neurological, biological, psychological studies of consciousness, its origins and how it manifests, and was always encouraging us, make sure you include consciousness studies in all of your work, which we have a spontaneous recall of past lives, which I have experienced, induced recall of past lives, which I have undergone on this show a couple years ago, a live past life regression that was very interesting, a life on the sea, slain in the Vietnam and Civil Wars, of course, with that much death and carnage, reincarnation, past lives, loss. The whole spiritual movement was launched in the United States, really picked up steam due to the massive amounts of loss during the Civil War, the New Atlanteans, karmic ties with others, so on and so forth. So an absolutely wonderful book, Soul Journeys, Past Lives and Reincarnation. Now, this next one, Tanya and I have spoken about Ouija boards on and off again because we have mixed feelings about them. And I think what we've really come to at this point in our lives and career is the fact that it's a tool. And it's a tool that makes big demands on you. So you should know what you're doing and why when you're playing with this, because oftentimes, as related in this book, co-written with Rick Fisher, who has one of the biggest collections of Ouija boards on the planet, so a wonderful team up for them, shocking true stories. I had one when I was 16. I've told on the show. It was very powerful and really set the tone for the deep amount of respect for the fact that I have, that I know that there are dark things out there that can really harm you and do terrible things. I think they are kind of few and far between if you do things correctly. So if you're interested in the Ouija, if you have a Ouija board, if you're thinking of getting a Ouija board or talking board or spirit board, Ouija, of course, don't forget, is the whichever gaming company it was that put them out. But that's the cool thing about this book. There's a lot of history, and then there's the anecdotal things, the personal experiences they've had. Some of the titles, The Naughty Planchette, Origins and Mystique of the Ouija, The ABCs of Murder and Mayhem, The Ouija Has More Than Its Day in Court, all of that interesting. And then you start to get into things like The Mystery of Orup, The Rise of the Demon Board, Unmasking Communicators. That's the biggest thing. That's what I've seen. This is one of over a dozen books of Rosemary's that I reviewed, and there is a clear story arc, a lot of times, somewhat a series of tropes. Certainly when you get into the Zozo phenomena, the Mama phenomenon, all those different kinds of things. So is a wonderful appendix, the Ouija in films. So terrific book here. Now, I'm going to call up, and hopefully it kept its place. We'll see. Here's Weird You Gone Wild. Lori, thank you for putting up all these URLs for people to visit with. Yes, it did remember. So this is One Night in the Low Hotel. I'm going to say that this is probably around 2012 or 2013. It is in this room right here. We have this picture that hangs in our hallway. So let me just drop this down here. This picture that hangs in our hallway. For those of you who are listening to this on ERT Radio about 3 weeks from the live show, audio only, please visit the YouTube page, join me to your YouTube page, or go to one of the Facebook pages so you can see all of this stuff after you listen to the audio version. But wonderful picture. I believe this was taken by Mark Randall. But this is in our hallway. This is the very room. You can see the chair in the background there. I just wanted to share that with you. And we had an interesting night with the Ouija board. We contacted Tanya's grandmother, who we've shared with you over the years, was very, very talented, automatic writer, astral traveler, really, really interesting woman. She came through, offered some advice on two brothers who weren't getting along, gave us some interesting things, and we learned an interesting lesson. We learned that when the board starts talking gibberish, it's time to give it up. There seems to be an energetic exhaustion that happens when the communication isn't happening. Conversely, it takes a while for it to start up, to warm up. So here are Tanya and Rosemary setting the intention. After what had happened to me when I was 16 years old, I was very, very hesitant to use the board. There isn't a picture of it, but Rosemary did say, come join me, sit here. It was really nice to have a conversation with Tanya's grandmother across time and space. And it really was a nice thing. And then there's another one here of them actually working with the board, and it went on for several hours. I think we did a session this night at the Lowe Hotel. If you don't know the Lowe Hotel, wonderful, the place to stay when you go to Point Pleasant, right in town, overlooking again the square and the museum and all of that. Then I think we did a session the next night in one of the bedrooms that we were staying in. So here you go. That is that. So moving right along here. So this is a book that Rosemary edited from Fate Magazine. Fate Magazine, a very, very big deal. This book, I think, is really not that old. Published by Visionary Living, wonderful, in cooperation with Fate, and published in 2019. So this was the year that Rosemary passed. I am not a huge Bigfoot guy. Bigfoot, the phenomena just doesn't resonate with me. I do believe that it's mostly interdimensional. It's certainly very interesting. There's a lot of evidence through Stan Gordon and others that Bigfoot is linked to UFO phenomena. An interdimensional traveler, like I said, could be flesh and blood too. Could come in flesh and blood and then go out, kind of like the thing that Tanya and I saw in 2009. Maybe, I don't know, but if you want to know, this is a good book to read. Now, when Rosemary passed for several months after, she was in communication with a lot of our colleagues. That was wonderful to get independent corroborations about certain things that she communicated to us. We were at a cemetery in with Kevin Paul, who one of his books is on the list here that he co-wrote with Rosemary, Haunted Hills and Hollows, about southwestern Pennsylvania, very, very active area. Through the box came a message to me that said, I said, can you communicate with us through the box? And she said, you're going to have to work for it. Now, Kevin was off doing something else, didn't hear this. The next day we were at a psychic fair. He gets a reading. He comes out. He says, Rosemary came through, and in the card reading said, we're going to have to work for communication. So that was a wonderful independent corroboration there. So she did tell Tanya through her automatic writing after she passed, through Tanya's automatic writing, that I am here with Keel, and Bigfoot is real, and he's interdimensional. So that was a pretty wonderful communication. So great book, absolutely stunning cover. And then I'm going to go to the table of contents real quick. Ivan Sanderson, Preston Dennett, let's see who else, Daniel Perez, Mika Hanks, Lyle Blackburn, Nick Redfern, Brad Steiger. I mean, the absolute luminaries in the field of cryptozoology are represented in this book, which Rosemary was asked to edit. Pretty wonderful here. So this is another compilation book. This came out, I believe, I want to say 2017, 2018. The Road to Strange, another collaboration she did, Michael Brain, ambassador to the Strange, also published by Visionary Living. It was a very big deal when Rosemary launched her own publishing company. Still exists, of course. The URL is there. Her husband Joe has done a wonderful job keeping it alive. It's wonderful, wonderful. I've had Carl Petrie on the show. 2 books published from Visionary Living by Carl. So The Road to Strange: UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. And this one, 2018. So Tanya and I are in this book twice, or Joe and I are in it. Our child, Joe, our youngest, are in it because they had a very strange experience with MIBs on the road coming back from Point Pleasant. I talked about that about a month ago. I did a show just on the Men in Black. It was my first Parallels, Patterns, and Pathways show. And this summer and into the fall, I'm going to give you a lot of ufology and high strange and stuff through that program, intermixed with Sinister Mysteries. That'll be starting the 3rd week in July. So summer, fall, and into the winter, you're going to get a lot of Sinister Mysteries, and you're going to get a lot of ufology through the decades. And I'll be keeping up with disclosure. I have so many people sending me information. I'll try to keep up with it. But anyway, and then Tanya and I are in here with our experience with spectral MIB during our time at the Webb Memorial Library, our 2 years there, 150 hours investigating that. So what's really wonderful about this book is it is written by people who are experiencers, and then Michael and Rosemary offer a commentary, or historical context, giving veracity to the cases. So we're very honored to be in this book, not just once, but twice. That was pretty wonderful. So here's the book I mentioned with our colleague Kevin Paul. Kevin has since written a sequel to this, but this is Haunted Hills and Hollows: What Lurks in Greene County, Pennsylvania. Very active place. Tanya and I have spent hours and hours and days there with our friends, Michelle, and with Kevin, and with other researchers, with Rosemary, in these places, familiar with many of the things that went on that are described in this book, and wonderful whenever Kevin lectures about it when we get to go to see it. That's wonderful. So here again, Lori's putting up all these URLs, which is wonderful. Thank you. And then they'll all be here after the fact. They'll be on the Facebook pages. So just stop by and pick those up. I'm sure all of these books are available through Amazon. If you don't want to do business with Amazon, understandable. Barnes and Noble, all the other big outlets, or go to visionaryliving.com and Joe will fulfill your order. So there you go. So this is a lot of really interesting, really interesting history, and very strange things. Look at this strange creature being. This is a wonderful book. I read this twice. It's wonderful. So did I say it's wonderful enough? It kind of is. In Pennsylvania, I think wonderful is part of their no, you've got a friend in Pennsylvania. I don't know what it is. But West Virginia, though, wild and wonderful. The Big Book of West Virginia Ghost Stories. Now, I have written almost 300 reviews. Like I said, probably 12 to 15 of them have been of Rosemary's books that she's either written or co-written, including Haunted Hills and Hollers and so forth. Last year in our library, Tanya and I have no idea where it came from, but there's a book that was published around the same time as this one, also about ghosts and hauntings in West Virginia. This book just plain blows it away. The professionalism, no need to get tongue-in-cheek and show how much wit you have. No, just to go county by county, region by region, collecting the ghost stories. Now, we were with Rosemary in Parkersburg while she was doing the research, and she stayed with us in our house in the Holler when she was doing the research in the Morgantown Fairmont Avenue. That was wonderful. So we'd be out all day. She'd come back, hole up in the back bedroom where I also did a lot of my writing over the years, and you would hear her clicking away at the laptop till all hours of the morning, readying this book. There was another book she was working on too that I'm going to get to really soon. But as you can see, there's the weeping woman here on this. And I want to bring up, when we were in Parkersburg, I have two pictures of Rosemary with this weeping woman here in the cemetery in Parkersburg. Now, if you hold her hand, as Rosemary's doing, and you can see the look of total bliss and respect on Rosemary's face, you feel like you're activated in a portal. You can feel yourself being pulled forward. You can feel the energies around you. Is absolutely amazing. We all got to do it. So I just wanted to show you these pictures. Probably Tanya, I would say, took these pictures and not me. But this was all in service to this amazing, amazing book, the Big Book of West Virginia Ghost Stories. Now I'm going to hold these. I'm going to hold the rest of these slides here for a while. This is wonderful. Hardcover. Tanya says, I really miss those days. Absolutely. It's whenever we talk to any colleagues who spend any time, our friends, the James Foys in England, checked in when I made a post about doing the show. Other colleagues who really miss her wonder, oh, what books would we have written, and what adventures what we would have, and what knowledge would we have discovered together, or sitting with her in a place like the lobby at the Lowe Hotel, would we have learned from her? So really wonderful. So again, I'm going to put this up right there, West Virginia Ghost Stories. Now, it wasn't all ghosts and monsters, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, and all of that. Like I said, Rosemary was very talented, intuitive, had amazing experiences that it was great to hear about some of them. Did the Black Mirror scrying and all of that kind of stuff, different rituals with amazing people in countries all around the world. She was a collector of artifacts and a well-heeled traveler. Her and Joe would go on the road, have amazing adventures. But this book here, Dream Work for Visionary Living. I'm very into dream work. I had a mentor in dream work. Tanya became a mentor in dream work. And when we had our art center, taught all kinds of classes in dream work. I have radical dreaming, and of course, all the Jungian stuff and different symbol books and card books. This is the one. If you were going to read one book about dream work, I would read this one. It covers psychic dreaming, lucid and out of body dreaming, dreams that heal, dreams that usher in major turning points and change, creative breakthrough dreams. So all of those, very, very important to me. Lucid dreaming, astral travel, even the Robert Moss stuff, which is wonderful. And how I first learned about astral traveling, lucid dreaming, and all of that, I think really just doesn't hold a candle to the accessibility of this book. Dreams that reach into the spiritual realms. Russell Targ and Harold Pudoff and their experiments with the stock market are included in here. Dreams of premonitions of disasters, and when you get that information, what do you do with it, and how do you deliver it, and what's your relationship to it, knowing that something's going to happen that maybe you can't stop from happening, but you found out about it. It's wonderful. Also included in this book, again published by Visionary Living, 37 innovative dream labs, and I did all 37. So wonderful exercises to attune your dream capacity, to direct your dreams, to call up, you ever have a dream and all of a sudden you wake up from the alarm or a loud noise or just through the circadian rhythms and you want to get back to that place? Well, you can learn how to do that in this book. Absolutely beautiful cover. Reminds me a little of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night for some reason. And we had a hard time locating this book in the house. It was actually misplaced as I was prepping for the show this week. And I was like, no, it's got that beautiful blue swirly cover with the gold lettering, and it turned up. It was wonderful, and I'm so glad here. So I showed you this picture. Tanya and I had New Mystics Art Center in Fairmont, West Virginia, as we were getting to know Rosemary, and we were lucky enough to have her come and lecture. One of the books that she was working on, that she then did a lecture on at the Art Center, which was very wonderful, was this book, Fairies Mysteries, Folklore, and Facts. And I just got around to reading this book several months ago. This is key when you start to look at Rosemary's theory of everything. This idea that she thought that a very, very large part of all the different things that manifest, especially the dark entities, the shadow people, which we experienced with her, sort of amorphous masses and the Hat Man and these different kinds of things, as well as fairies, were all one thing. And the seeds of that are really in this book as far as the fairies. I read recently, and I think I mentioned it on the show, Graham Hancock's Supernatural. And that looks at the shamanic cave drawings. It looks like the fairies, and it looks at UFO abductions. And Rosemary was right there with that scholarship on the front lines. Tanya says, I had a fairy visitation the first time I read that book, and I think we talk about that in one of our books. It's either Roommates from Beyond, she talks about it in Intuitive Life, or possibly in both. It was quite wonderful. Rosemary was writing this book in our house. The energy was there. We had a wonderful fairy garden at that house. We also have one here, a hawthorn tree, a fairy circle here at our house in Leavittsburg. So this is wonderful, from the Cottingdale fairies to how to see fairies. So if you want to see fairies, again, Rosemary was great with these handbooks. I think, Tanya, don't you agree that we wouldn't have written Roommates from Beyond if it hadn't been because we were exposed to Rosemary's handbooks? I have another book that I didn't pull for this one called The Handbook of the Dark Side of the Paranormal, I believe is the name. But books like this and the Dreamwork book, and another book that I'm going to share with you on the art of Black Mirror scrying. Wonderful handbooks by someone with that you could trust, someone who was serious, someone who was practiced, someone who was gifted. So these are books that it's easy to recommend to people, like I'm doing to you tonight. So should you call up fairies reading some handbook by somebody that you don't know what they're doing? Trust me, Tanya and I spent a good part of our time when we were very active investigators, and I still get phone calls and emails where people who go off half-cocked and get themselves into trouble. Something comes back on them, or they think that they're dialing up one thing and their vibration and their protection and their white light are not at the right level, so they're calling up something else, and then they're in the bind, and then we have to come in and help them and undo something. Undoing something way harder than doing something right the first time, and books like this are the way to go. Tanya says, I agree. Roommates owes so much to Rose mentoring and influence. Absolutely. In all quarters. We could not have written that book without her influence. So, how to see fairies, fairy powers, the origins of fairies. Absolutely fascinating. I've read many books about fairy lore, specifically in Scotland, because of some of the things that I do, some of the projects. How fairies live, hoaxes about fairies, very, very important. That's where the Cottingley fairies comes in, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the grandfather of the paranormal, in many ways, got sucked into that whole thing. And then changelings and other fairy tricks. And I find the changeling thing, I built a whole escape room around the whole idea of the fairy phenomenon in Scotland. And this book would have been, I had forgotten that it existed and it was on the shelf. And I find it, but I definitely would have used this. There's a timeline of really important things, everything Reverend Robert Kirk visiting Fairyland, and then his disappearance, walking into a hill, a mound one day and going away. Oh, missing time, all the different things that would lead to Rosemary's theory of everything would be a very useful to kind of track. All of this would be fun if you have the time and interest, the way that we organically got to reading these books over years and seeing all of these parts and pieces come together, really in one of the last books that I'm gonna share with you, and then I'll go over all that. So we're doing good on time here. I really want to kind of keep this to an hour. Let's see how we're doing here. Before I do the last two books, I'm going to call up some other slides. It was probably by 2013, 2014, probably about 5 years into knowing Rosemary, that we went from, like I said, an investigator who was interested in our work, to a mentor. taking us out in the field, being patient, showing us the equipment, helping Tanya develop her talents. And then, it was work, but it always wasn't work. There was the serious business of these kinds of things, communing in a cemetery, dealing with the Ouija board, getting down and dirty under, these rocks to look for clues, working with the spirit box at a place where 46 people lost their lives in 1967, out in the field communicating with the elementals and other powerful beings. But when it was time to play, it was okay. It was time to play as well. And that's why I love this photo so much. I call it the Adventurers. Is how I titled this photo in my files. And Rosemary and Tanya. This was a wonderful day. We had climbing these rocks and looking at wonderful, wonderful things. And so I wanted to share that with you. This is when it really became a friendship. Tanya and Rosemary got particularly close. They ran events together. They talked about doing books together. And Rosemary was a mentor to Tanya in absolutely profound ways. Tanya still remembers that day. That was a great day. That was really a lot of fun. There was a 2 or 3 day trip that we did. It was wonderful. But there are those two beautiful ladies together, looking spectacular and doing their thing and planning on how to educate people. And Tanya always willing to learn, like I was. This is Rosemary and I. There is a secret to this photo that only a few people in the world know, and I will certainly never tell. But it's a look of absolute surprise and wonder on my face as the picture is taken. This was for an event for Max the Crystal Skull. If you know about the crystal skulls that are spread out all over the world. And Lori and our friend Michelle did a wonderful episode a couple years ago on the crystal skulls. Lori has quite a collection of them. I have small skulls here that are made out of. Here, let me drop this out here for a second. Made out of different materials. Some of Lori's are quite exquisite and sizable. So you can go to the YouTube page or the Facebook page and see that. Oh, that picture wanted to come up again. Yeah, here another one, and so the crystal skulls, the stone skulls, and that was wonderful. Max is very powerful. People communed with him, had some wonderful stuff. That was a project that Tanya put together with Rosemary. That was a wonderful day. Our friend David Nutter, who's a feng shui expert, set up the feng shui for our learning center. Lori says, loved seeing Max, change my life for sure. So she was at that event. It was wonderful that we all got to experience that. And again, I have very, very fond memories of this photo. And then here, this is at one of the last Mothman festivals that we all attended together. Lori met Rosemary that day, and we were able to introduce her to a lot of our friends and colleagues that day who hadn't met her. It was really wonderful. It was a wonderful weekend. It was hosted by our friends. Tanya, I am drawing a blank. Please help me out. Our friends who hosted John Griggs and his wife. John passed several years ago. We've lost too many great people. Doing these tribute shows is hard. I lost 2 other mentors this past year. So anyway, there's Rosemary there at the table, got her tarot cards with Tanya and I, and her book there, The Art of Black Mirror Scrying, which is Phyllis and John Griggs, wonderful, wonderful people. John had worked with NASA. He had been involved in the investigation of what had happened with the Challenger. Very brilliant man intellectually, very, very talented man spiritually, as Phyllis wonderful as well. So wanted to bring that up. That was wonderful. And they hosted that weekend. Let's see here. Yeah. And then Rosemary, again, I think this is the Mothman Festival. Just one of her favorite things of the year, a perennial favorite there. So I want to tell you, if you're into Black Mirror scrying, again, just a wonderful, wonderful handbook. Now, this is complex stuff. I've studied many, many things in the past 25 years, spiritual things, shamanic journeying, and and had a sweat lodge on our property, and lucid dreaming, astral travel, transcendental meditation. Freudian slip there, maybe. But Black Mirror scrying. Now, here is my Black Mirror. And this was made by Rosemary and Joe, and I purchased this a couple years before Rosemary passed, and I have seen some things in this. I had some vortexes open up. I have seen some faces in it, but it's difficult to use. I have shown this before different times and for different reasons. I'm very careful to keep it warded, to keep it closed, to keep it covered. If you have a Black Mirror or you get a Black Mirror, first of all, before you do anything with it, maybe before you get the mirror, if you're thinking about it, read this book and read it cover to cover. To Joey and Tanya, may the mirror reveal truth. Maybe someday when I get more adept at it. I've read this book twice. This was published in 2014. I got the mirror, I believe, in 2016. But there's chapters on John Dee and Nostradamus, a magnetism, scrying, and summoning the dead, the psychomantium. And Rosemary's visit is a wonderful chanter to a psychomantium, a room very specially constructed because it's a trick with the mirror. You have to hold it in the right way, and you do it by candlelight, and you can't reflect anything in it, so you need some blank space, and you kind of have to defocus your eyes. These are very, very powerful. We have helped people get rid of squatters because they didn't close the mirror, didn't have it covered, or the mirror was in a place that was sort of a transitory place. One thing we've learned in our investigations is that places like attics, basements, old sheds, abandoned buildings, no one is claiming them. They're full of boxes and they're full of junk, and they don't have the energy of the living and occupation. If you have a room that you just stored a bunch of boxes in when you moved in, if your house is psychically active, that may be a place where they come in. And if you happen to have something like an unwarded scrying mirror in there, you could be asking for trouble. I don't know. I keep holding this thing, seeing if I'm going to see a reflection. That's probably the wrong and very irresponsible thing to do. So I'm going to stop doing that. But read this book here, The Art of Black Mirror Scrying. Now, I'll tell you something about how powerful these mirrors can be. Let me see if I call up a picture here. I think I'm going to call up a picture here. Oh, here's Visionary Living. Look at that. A stunning, stunning imprint. That wonderful four segmented with the arrow and the pyramid. Just wonderful. When you go visit visionaryliving.com, there's a wonderful picture of Rosemary right on the homepage there. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. This is November of 2018. We did not know it at the time because when the hell do you ever know things like this? But this is the last time that we would ever be with Rosemary while she was amongst the living. Her and Joe were coming back from a big event, something that they loved in Columbus, a big event every year. And they said, hey, we're going to be coming through. We're going to be passing pretty close to your house there in Ohio. Do you want to meet at this Cracker Barrel? And so we did. We talked about all kinds of things. We talked about the future. We talked about promoting our books, what she was up to, how the theory of everything was going. It was all wonderful. November of 2018. And then when our book came out, our book had come out, Watch Out for the Hallway. And we had a series of meetings with Rosemary, and she'd say, oh, I'm in my pajamas or whatever, it's late at night, or I'm not in a comfortable place. So we would always do audio only. So literally we did not see her, although we communicated with her, talked to her on the phone. We did not physically see her again after November of 2018. Now there's a really big event with George Noory. She was trying to get us on Coast to Coast AM, which years later we were on Coast to Coast AM, thanks in part to her efforts, as well as Mark Eddy is with us tonight. Mark's efforts as well. I saw a lot of cool people that day, went out to Columbus, and Rosemary had to cancel last minute. So we kind of knew something was up. This was in April, maybe it was in May. Tanya began to get an intuition that something wasn't right. But out of respect, people aren't volunteering. You don't pry. You don't pry. But we thought maybe something wasn't right. So I'm sitting in my downstairs office where we originally launched this show, which we had given to our son for 2.5 years, and which is now my music room. Um, uh, the mirror was on the shelf with all of Rosemary's books, and I was very intently editing, and I was at my keyboard, and something kept telling me to look up, and I didn't want to look up. I was deeply concentrated. I was editing academic papers, but I looked up, and there was Rosemary right in the spot where the mirror sat on the shelf with all of her books, 14, 15 books, and she was there for just a second. And she looked at me, she smiled. It was a sad smile, and she went away. So I went out into the living room where Tanya was, and I told her what happened. And I said, I think something is dreadfully wrong. So Tanya called Joe, and he confirmed that she was in hospice, and she was very, very sick with cancer. And a couple days later, she passed away. So it was very nice that using, and I'm gonna, not point it towards the screen here, but sorry, getting a little choked up here. This mirror became a portal, and I think and other colleagues and friends and all agree that she was testing and going out, and the mirror was a good way to do it. So I had kept it cleansed. I had kept it so Lori says, very sorry for you and Tanya's loss. People were so affected. The one thing that everybody agrees on, well, two things that everybody agrees on with Rosemary was that she was a superstar of knowledge and responsibility, professionalism. She didn't go for all the infighting. She didn't go for all the, let's dress up and get $2,000 worth of equipment and go be disrespectful and go into places where we're not wanted or we're not authorized to be, trying to get that photo or trying to get that proof. And Tanya and I have tried to carry that flag forward. So that was the first thing, was her knowledge and her professionalism. The second thing was that she was so gracious with her time. We were at a festival, and a young man came up, and there were all kinds of people waiting to talk to Rosemary. She was an absolute rock star of the field. TV, documentaries, even did a little acting. We saw that Carl Petrie was involved in and produced guests on the show. Who Carl was very, very close with Rosemary. She even did some acting, which we didn't know about. So that was wonderful to see, and she did terrific with it. Of course, it was Rosemary. But she dropped everything, and she gave this young man a list of books, not just her books. Because I've spoken to a lot of people where you say, I'm really interested, or I had some experiences like you talk about in their books, and like, just read my other 15 books and good luck on your journey. And she was not like that at all. It was an honor to watch her share knowledge and mentor young people, mentor us who were not so young, especially by the end of our time with her. So the art of black mirror scrying, and this is going to get rewarded tonight. Rewarded, not one word, but two, RE-WARDED, rewarded, with some incense, and reclose that circle just to be sure before it goes back on the shelf with her books. The last two books that I want to share, I love this book here, this little wonderful book here. So if there's the big book of West Virginia ghost stories, this is kind of the little book in dimension and in page count. Stackpole Books put this one out, Monsters of West Virginia. This is wonderful. I've been working on some projects. The Mothman Escape Room is going to open real soon, and this is my go-to. I love it. Signed by her, Tanya and Joey. Thank you for the great closing chapter. There is a chapter in this book. I'm going to go through so you got monsters, birds, thunderbirds, flying reptiles. You have Mothman, of course. You have Braxy, or the Brax Encounter monster. You have the Yahoo, which is West Virginia's Bigfoot. Some really cool stuff here. Mystery dogs, demon dogs, werewolves, strange felines, white things, and sheep squatch. White things are fascinating. They psychically eviscerate people. People encounter them and they feel like their entrails are being pulled out. It's the weirdest damn thing. Never have encountered a white thing. I have a t-shirt with one on it, and thankfully that's the closest I've ever come. The very, very interesting snallygaster, death creatures, and different kinds of things. Screamers, flying manta rays. It kind of goes off the chain towards the end. It's awesome. But have read this many times. Came out in 2012. Had it for a long time. But there is this little chapter at the end called The Enchanted Holler. And it is about our acreage in West Virginia. Tanya and I with the portals and all of that. Rosemary stayed there, brought teams to investigate, night vision goggles, all kinds of equipment, things especially stirred up in the years we had the sweat lodge there. So that was really wonderful. Monsters of West Virginia. The last one is the only one that isn't currently in print for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into them, but it's called The Jinn Connection. The hidden links between jinn, shadow people, ETs, Nephilim, archons, reptilians, and other entities. This is the theory of everything that Rosemary was working on. These very, very complex beings. It's where we derive genie from, the jinn. They're all through the Quran. Very serious stuff. I've read books, travelogues by Paul Brunton and other very, very serious people who talk about meeting people who would conjure the jinn, cut the heads off of roosters, and do other strange things, strange rituals. In the Middle East, supposedly, politicians have jinn in their service, and you have to wonder if it's also not the other way around. We've had some encounters with jinn. I was pulled off a ladder with a jinn-like being because we were trying to help somebody, got off the phone from the intake. I've talked about that before. I didn't fall off the ladder. The ladder was pulled out from under me. The legs shot out. I fell about 8 feet, got terribly, terribly bruised, especially in the kidney area, was almost impaled on a broomstick, but luckily 2 days later was able to get on an airplane and fly from Ohio to New Jersey. We were able to help the people who were having an encounter with something like the jinn. The U.S. military, thanks to friends and a lot of research in bunkers and caves and other places in the Middle East, they have encountered the jinn. There's a fairly expansive lore of the jinn, and there's all kinds of jinn. There's hierarchies from very good jinn to evil jinn. Of course, there are the stories of Solomon building the temple, having the Michael ring, the Pentagon ring, the copper ring to control Iblis, who is sort of the chief of the jinn. This is an important book. If you can get your hands on it, there's good reasons why it's no longer in print. I will say that, but if you can get a used copy or something like that. Lori says, I'm afraid of that book. Yeah. When we talk about jinn, I'm really going to ward the house after the show tonight, but I had to talk about this book because it is seminal to her theory of everything. But when you deal with the jinn, there are dangers and there are prices. So don't muck around. Don't muck around is all I'm going to say. But just like with a Ouija board, if your vibration is right, if your intention is pure, this is part of the reality of, beyond the paranormal and the supernatural, or the normal and the natural, and the jinn are part of the normal and natural fabric of time and space. The jinn are the smokeless ones, smokeless fire, thought to be plasma, thought to be in parallel dimensions, possibly driven out or feeling like Earth is their land and it was taken away from them. Incredible overlaps. If you look at you look at the fairy book, and you look at the UFO books, and you look at the Bigfoot, and you look at all the things, you look at this book, how it all ties together. Something to be aware of. Haunted Hills and Hollers has serious encounters with the jinn, who will play psychological warfare with you to a degree that blows away a lot of dark entities. So if you're going to be out there in the world, in the fields and in the caves and in the old abandoned mine shafts and the forests and the woods and old abandoned places, you may encounter these things. if you travel the world, if you go to the Middle East, so on and so forth. Forewarned is forearmed, but go in with huge amounts of respect and humility. Rosemary was very humble when it came to the jinn because they're a serious foe. So there. So okay. So let's end here. Let me make sure I didn't skip anything. There's Visionary Living Publishing, some great pictures of Rosemary. Pure joy to be with her books, talk to people, sign autographs, sell books, educate folks. It was wonderful to watch her work because she was so genuine and so authentic. Of course, born July 8th, 1950, died July 18th, 2019. So, of course, watch the Into the Outer Realms page and my personal page. I'll be putting some tributes to Rosemary up on her birthday and on the date of her passing. And she did communicate with a lot of people, either through dreams or automatic writing or scrying mirrors or spirit boxes or through tarot, through a medium, like happened to our friend Kevin. And then a little more than a year out, year and a half, the communications slowed down and then they ceased. And we believe that she is off on a higher plane doing absolutely amazing work, absolutely reveling, being a joy and an honor to be around with everyone. And so when she passed away in July, of course. We were asked to do a tribute with some other of the Mothman irregulars. And so we put together a slideshow, did a presentation at the Mothman Festival. And that was a great honor. And what I want to leave you with, the last couple of pictures here, is some of her favorite publicity photos there. There's one, and then these two, which she absolutely loved. Look at her rocking it. Just self-assured, the rock star of the paranormal, amazing person. And this one of my favorites. And also, of course, the one that hung in our center. And then if you've been watching your show, you know that this hangs behind me for every single episode, even when we had our old set downstairs, our old space, this hung there, and it always will. And New Mystics Arts, Love and Kisses, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, one of our favorite possessions. Now, speaking about timing and all of these other kinds of things, as many of you know, I do this pirate thing. I'm going to go do it in Ashland, Ohio, in a couple weeks. It's been a big part of my life. And we never talked about it with Rosemary. I started it probably 3 years before she passed, and we never talked about it. But I let her husband Joe know that I was going to be doing this show, and got an email from him 2 days ago, and he said, look, I found something. Rosemary had gotten something for you and had misplaced it. And of course, with all going on in her life, it was a massive upheaval. But I found it in a closet and I'm sending to you. I'm overnighting it. Very generously paid $22 to overnight this thing. It comes in a box today. I open it up and check this out. Wonderful loose cannon with a great pirate thing. You'll see it at times. It fits right here nicely in the back of my set here. So it'll be with me. But I just want to show you that the timing was absolutely wonderful. Joe found this right before I was going to do the tribute show. 2 days later, Rosemary probably had a hand in it. It was wonderful. She never talked to me about, oh, Joey, I've been following your pirate stuff and all that. I think it's really cool. Was always very, very supportive of my fiction writing, had my books, read my stage reading of Kitchener County Menace. She played one of the characters. And then I pay homage to her in my short story collection, Icarus Continuum. Joe is reading that now. He has several of my books too, but this was just absolutely wonderful today. So I didn't cry too much. So anyway, thank you all. Lori says, give her the last word. She was a lovely person. I wish I'd have gotten to know her. We were very honored. It seemed to have been meant to be. We've talked about this on the show many times. I talk about it, especially when I'm on other people's shows. Whatever happened to us in 2009, the missing time, the abduction contact experience, all of that brought people like the Mothman Irregulars into our life, brought a whole new experience of the paranormal, and most importantly, brought Rosemary into our life. And to have been mentored by her for a decade, to grow into friendship, and then for her to publish our books was absolutely amazing. I'm honored to be close friends with her husband, Joe. And hopefully we will have many adventures going on in the future, cooking some stuff up. But we're in contact several times a week. We're having fun with Gilligan's Island right now, making up kooky conspiracy theories, reading into the subtext and whatnot, and what have you, as a friend of mine would say, whatnot and what have you. And that's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you for tuning in tonight. The next 2 weeks, we're going to go very much the spiritual route. Have a wonderful musician in 2 weeks, Kelly Yanni, who's going to be on, released a big single for Earth Day, and we're going to talk about her spiritual journey. Week before that, Kim Catlin. So that's next week. I can't get to the book, but the big forest fires in 2017 that led to a massive mudslide in California. Her husband and son were killed, swept away that night. Her and her daughter were almost killed. It is a journey of hope, belief, discovery, healing, and the power of psychics and mediums, and the ability of those who love us to give us messages from beyond, which Rosemary did. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. There you go. That's all I wanted to say. This is a good place to end. We will see you, and expect a big summer, fall, winter of Sinister Mysteries with my colleague Craig Ansel. We're going to tackle some really, really big ones. We're going to tackle the Kennedy assassination and 9/11 and some others. We're finally ready to do that. We're already beginning our research to get it right. And then my parallels, patterns, and pathways. The first one of those is July 20th, Ike and the Aliens. We're going to look at the Greada Treaty, all this stuff, which I think people are going to have a much harder time dismissing all of this because of all this big disclosure tug of war, and the white hats and the black hats, and really black hats versus black hats that we're all watching, that I'm trying to keep you updated with. So thank you all. I would probably do this if I was just talking to myself, but it's wonderful that I have all of you to talk to. So thank you so much. Read some of Rosemary's books, support her work, tell the stories about her legacy, and we'll keep her alive in that way. Thank you all. God bless. Talk to you soon.